Garrett gets a confession out of Dr. Parmack just by staring at him for 4 hours. Odo can turn himself into a Vicarian Razorback, and Eddington returns, and then promptly sabotages the Defiant's cloaking device. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the 7th Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk, and today we are doing a review of Deep Space Nine Season 3, Episode 21, The Die is Cast, directed by David Livingston and written by Battlestar Galactica's own Ronald D. Moore.
Ron Moore, the great one.
That's it. We are in the final episodes of Season 3. It's getting furry nowadays. It's getting furry. How are you, Cirroc?
Yeah, we are in the final episode. This is episode 21, so I guess we got 5 more to go after this.
Right.
I'm doing well. This was the second part of a 2-parter, so last time we got left on a cliffhanger unexpectedly because I thought it was going to be wrapped up.
Yeah, because it didn't say part 1 or part 2 on it.
Yeah, it didn't say part 1 or part 2, so I was expecting for it to be all wrapped up by that last episode, which was also directed by Avery Brooks, so that we had a whole lot to talk about. And I see that this one is a David Livingston episode, so a little bit different style. Obviously 2 different directors, but I enjoyed the first part of it more than the second part, which is kind of interesting for me.
Yeah, usually the second part's going to have more action and more resolution. So usually people might view a second episode more than a first one, because the first one's going to be build up, twist to be continued, right?
Mm-hmm.
First things first. So our buddy Michael Eddington. Actually, before that, even we're going to get to Michael Eddington in just 1 second. We do want to remind you to go ahead and, subscribe, give us a like, go to patreon.com/the7th rule if you want to throw $1 or a yen our way. If you want the freest way to support us, or just to say, hey, I appreciate that you guys are doing this. It's a good time. Just give us a like, subscribe, hit the bell icon for notifications, because 63% of the people viewing our videos aren't even subscribed, and that's practically a crime. So it's not, though, thank goodness. So please hook that up, and we'll all be very happy and thankful. Michael Eddington, do you remember him?
Michael Eddington. He's the security officer in this episode.
Right, Lieutenant Commander. Even he's pretty high up there.
Okay.
He was in a few episodes. It was either at the very beginning of season 3 or the very end of season 2. But, a couple months ago, 2-3 months ago, we had a few episodes with him, and suddenly here he is. He's back. Hi, Eddington. What do you think of him?
Well, first of all, he reminds me of a guy who played in a show called Hunter. Do you remember that show, Hunter?
I do remember that show.
Yeah, he kind of reminds me of the lead actor in Hunter. Which I used to love all the time. I used to love that show. But no, I thought he was pretty good. He's the double agent in this particular episode.
Well, he's following orders that were given to him directly from the Admiral, because when he was originally transferred over to Deep Space Nine, it's because they didn't fully trust Odo to be the security chief of this giant station, because Odo is not Starfleet. So Starfleet, headquarters was like, we got to have a Starfleet officer at least working in conjunction with it. It's kind of watching over Deep Space Nine, but also kind of keeping an eye on Odo, who is a changeling, by the way. So he's kind of a double agent in that he reports kind of directly to Starfleet admirals, more so than Sisko. And as you saw, that kind of screwed things up for a minute there.
Yeah, I thought he did a good job in this episode. He was definitely relevant, and he had some redeeming qualities that were expressed, I guess, midway through this, where he makes a promise to uphold his allegiance to Sisko. One of the things I really did like about this episode was Sisko's action, and it was a real decisive action, even though it went against Starfleet and the Admiral's orders. I just liked the way he did it. It was really decisive. He knew that the window of time was short, so he had to make a decision very quickly. And he did what I think is honorable about all of the military, which is the idea that no man is left behind.
Exactly.
And that's one of the things that I think showed tremendous courage and bravery on his part, and I enjoyed watching that kind of unfold in his own rationale for why it needed to be done.
Yeah, and that's the line that kind of echoed in my head too. It's like, I've never been in the military. I don't know. I don't think you have either. But even those of us that haven't know that line, that nobody gets left behind. Like, it's just not an acceptable course of action. And, thank God, because if you're that person, you're like, you don't have to think, well, are they even going to come back for me or not? Just hang in there. Somebody's going to come looking for you. Even if you're, a bucket of goop and a Cardassian tailor, So that was cool. That was the right decision, even with the Admiral, saying that you better not do it or you're going to get a court-martial.
Yeah, I thought it was the right decision, and I like the swiftness that that Sisko takes with making it. It was just like, and there was a moment there actually where they're on the bridge of the Defiant, and Kira says, "Oh, I'm getting a signal. It says that you absolutely cannot go." And I really love the answer that that Sisko gives in that. The response was, "I think that's what you think it says," or something to that.
Yeah. He goes, "You think it says that, but how can you know when it's so badly garbled?" And she's like, like wink, wink.
Yes.
Or as the Germans do. By the way, the way Germans wink is they go like this.
Yeah, that's not the wink you want. But yeah, it was the first time I think garbled was ever used in a Star Trek episode. So shout out to the word garbled.
This episode is brought to you by the word garbled and the letter D.
Yeah. So I like the way that little interaction was great. It was like, yeah, that's what you think it says, right? Because we're about to break all these rules over here, and you're going to help me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was one of those kind of moments. It also showed that he said something to the effect of like, if you want to go on this mission, it's voluntary, it's an optional thing. And I also like the fact that his entire crew was there with him, so nobody turned down that option, right?
And the surprise, of course, was that Eddington was there. That was the guy you wouldn't expect, but now we know why. It's because the Admiral was like, you get on that ship and you sabotage the cloaking device so that they can still defend themselves, but then they got to turn tail and run. Although I would say that not everybody should have gone. Like, for example, I think Kira could have definitely stayed behind, because my first thought is, who's watching the station? Quark? Quark's in charge.
Step right up.
Yeah, Quark's in charge. I mean, he's selling the baseball off of Sisko's desk.
Who wants to sit in the captain's chair? Come on, line up.
Literally nobody's there. It's Jake, Nog's off in Starfleet Academy. Keiko's there. Nope, actually Keiko's doing her botany stuff on Bajor. So it's Quark and Sisko and you, Jake Sisko. So you guys could have had your own episode with Rom.
Oh yeah, you should have seen us that day. We were acting it up. The self-sealing stem bolts we got a hold of. But no, I do think somebody should have been left behind to be in charge. Or at least we should have seen that conversation transpire, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Where we're saying, okay, you're in charge.
Right, and the person that should have been left behind was Kira and or Eddington. Eddington, we understand why he ended up going, but I thought Kira should have stayed behind, honestly.
She wasn't really needed for the mission, so yes, she could have been left behind, and you're in charge. I thought that would have been probably a better right for them. It's another funny thing is because it seems like these two episodes both began at the commissary with Bashir eating,
Right.
which is like, it's a little bit old for me, and I don't like when they do the same thing over and over again, especially in repetition. So they usually they've started these last two episodes. The last one, Dr. Bashir eats his food too fast, and that was something that was being talked about by Garrick. Garrick was telling him, "You're eating your food too fast."
Right.
And then this episode starts off with Bashir eating his plummic soup. Plummic?
Plomeek soup again, because I remember that was one of our trivioids once, is he likes to have his plomeek soup hot.
Yeah, so he was eating his plummic soup, this time now with O'Brien. And so they've started these both episodes back to back with the sit down, sitting, Bashir eating essentially. And that to me is just a little bit lazy on the writing, because they should be aware that that's how they started the last episode and mix it up a little bit. Can't be the exact same, hanging out spot and starting an episode exactly the same way. So I thought that's a little bit lazy on the writing side. And I feel like I've seen that in many episodes now. This must be the 10th or 15th time that I've seen an episode start with somebody, usually Bashir, eating.
Well, they do love to have like their little, they start every episode with like a slice of life. Like, oh, here they are hanging out, they're having lunch, and then they're giving us a bunch of fun trivioids. And then warbirds show up, or, Quark's ex-girlfriend shows up, or something happens, and then the episode goes from there. So yeah, what you're saying is let's have a little bit more variety on that first couple minutes. Let's see some darts. Let's see some tennis or
something else. Or they could be eating, but on the go as they're walking down the promenade. So they, like how we would have a burger and just be walking and holding something, or an ice cream cone or whatever. And you could be mobile. You don't have to start exactly at that same place right by the Replimat in the little commissary.
Right. You know what would be cool is if Jake would go visit his dad for lunch sometimes. How fun would that have been? Like he goes into Sisko's office, sits down, and they just split a burger and kind of, maybe toss the ball back and forth and talk. And then and then Jake says, "All right, I got to get back to class." And that would be a great way to open.
That would be a great way to open, and also taking the food somewhere else. It's like they have a rule that you can only eat within this parameter here. But it would be great if Jake said, "Hey, I went to da 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 da, and I brought you back some of those glazed donut things that you like, right, or whatever it is." Don't make that face, Ryan.
What
Don't
face?
Do that to me.
Don't do that to me.
The glazed donut face. But yeah, something like that. Like I brought you back this, and like somebody goes to the store and brings back some pastries or whatever, and you share that. So I think they need to stay away from the sit down, starting the same way at least twice in a row, because it stood out to me. I was like, well, haven't I seen this like before?
That's a great thing. Everybody that's watching in on, say, like YouTube right now, in the comments below, tell us what you think would be a cool opening scene. Like I was saying, Jake Sisko having lunch with his dad, and they're talking. Jake brings glazed donuts because he knows his dad loves glazed donuts, and or maybe you've got somebody going into Garrick's tailor shop and saying, did you hem my pants properly, and whatever like that. There's so many things. You're right, because this isn't a starship where there's only a few things that could be happening. There's an infinite amount of things that could be. You could have Dax and O'Brien at Cargo Bay 3 just counting boxes. Anything.
Yeah, anything. You could have an illegal dice game happening in the corner over there somewhere on the promenade, where these aliens are gathered together to play some weird kind of dice-looking game.
Because there is.
Yeah, and Odo has to break it up. Hey, none of that here. Go to Quarks if you want to gamble.
Mm-hmm.
There could be all kinds of different ways to start the show. I mean, we had the biggest set in the history of Star Trek built, as the promenade. So I just feel like they, sitting there in a seated position, starting with food, is so limited when you have all this happening around you, all these shops and all these things happening. I think it's, they're not taking advantage of it, and it just stood out to me as being repetitive, especially coming after this episode with Improbable Cause, which is the one before this.
Right. But you know what the best part of this conversation is? I and others love all those lunch scenes. Like, those are kind of like these legendary things of like the lunches between Bashir and Garrick, but it is true that there's so many things they could do with that, but people do love the Garrick and Bashir conversations. That's kind of like one of the big highlights when looking back on it, is all the little verbal chess matches that those two have, and how Garrick's always like, but doctor, maybe it's this or maybe it's that, and he's like, oh, come on, Garrick, and they have a little banter.
But I do, and I understand that it's part of the thing that you kind of, familiar with, and it makes you into your comfort place, which I feel like in the Jake and Nog world, in our microcosm of this experience, it was the upstairs,
right,
dangling our feet, looking down from the upper deck of the promenade.
Right.
Which again would be, something to see, would have been nice to have seen up until this point. Hey, Nog, I'll meet you upstairs. Well, let's go have a milkshake or something up there. We're sitting there drinking milkshakes. It could be our hangout / eating the snack spot. Mm-hmm. So there's always ways to just manipulate it and take advantage of such a beautiful set that they designed. I just feel like it's too easy to say, hey, you guys are sitting there having lunch again in the exact same spot that we just had Garrick and Bashir having lunch.
Right.
Yes, yesterday, which would be yesterday in our mind on the show.
It was a great episode for Garrick, or 2 episodes, in that, we get to learn a little bit more about who he is, but also it's Garrick and Odo throughout. And maybe we're jumping ahead here, but very quickly, possibly my favorite line is, where is it? Oh, there it is. My favorite line in this episode is at the very end, when Garrick says, do you know what the sad part is? I'm a very good tailor. And the reason I thought that was the best line is because for many, many, many years, I worked in restaurants. I started off as a busboy, and then a host, and then a waiter and a manager, and then I moved to LA as a musician, and back to a waiter, and I worked as a waiter for years and years and years and years and years, and trying to be a successful musician, and then actor, and then producer. And only recently, a few years ago, was I finally able to quit that and leave that life behind, mercifully. And the thing that would kill me is, so often people that thought they were paying me the highest compliment, or because they liked me or thought that I deserved it, they would say, you're an excellent waiter. Or they'd be like, you're the best waiter. And that was like somebody got like an ice cream scoop and was just scooping out little pieces of my soul, because I'm sitting here trying to be an actor. I'm sitting here trying to do my thing, and people are like, oh boy, you were just made to be a waiter. You're so good at it, And so I definitely felt his pain there. His pain is like, there's nothing more painful than being good at doing something that you don't want to be doing, So I like that one. Somebody in that writer's room knew what they were talking about there. Somebody was drudging it through, and that's not to disparage people that work in the service industry. They deserve so much kudos for what they do, right? I mean, anybody that hasn't done it, we've always said people should work as a waiter for at least 2 weeks, just so that you understand what's going on there. It is not an easy job. Anyway.
Well, I actually had the opposite effect. Maybe, I guess, because it was something I wanted to do, and you're telling me it's something that is a stepping stone to get to where you want to get to. Mm-hmm. And for me, when I was a waiter / bartender at the restaurant, I was actually proud of myself for being a good waiter. I was like, well, I could do this too. Like, I'm not,
You're right. I hadn't thought of that. It is totally because you were an actor throughout your childhood, and then you're like, I want to do something else. But you kind of created your own restaurant. You were not just like, clocking in for
Yeah,
minimum wage on somebody else's dime, you know?
and you're waiting on somebody. You're waiting on somebody. So the job entails the same thing. You know, I've got to wipe your table down. I'm bringing you water. I'm taking your order.
Right.
I'm filling your wine glass. Whatever it is, and it's the same job. So I actually took pride in the fact that I was a good waiter and a good bartender. When people would tell me that, I would say, "Wow, I can do something else. I'm not just an actor." So it's funny how I saw the exact same thing from the opposite
That's
side.
brilliant. I didn't even think of that when I was saying that. You're right. That is so cool. I think you're crazy, and you probably think I'm crazy, but
You know what?
I think that's awesome.
What I'll tell you is that what I learned about the two things that are very similar is being a people person and interacting and talking with people, and those are the skill sets that translate from one to the other. So
Right.
when I was being a waiter, bartender, whatever you want to call it, I had the time to get to know people. There's a therapy involved with that, either whether it's you're helping somebody get into a date night with their relationship type thing, or you're listening to somebody's problems. It could be a thousand different ways, but there is a ability to interact with people, listening with people, and I think those same skill sets translate to acting. If you're good at on your
Definitely.
feet and you're good at communicating with people, then you'll be good at auditioning and you'll be good at performing on stage
That's a great
as well.
point. I used to say when I was working, when I was working as a waiter, I would say, look, I just consider this like an acting job. You know, my call time is 4 p.m. and my role is the happy waiter. Hi, everybody. I'm the happy waiter.
Yeah, yeah, it is, and I mean, it's the same skill set.
Mhm.
You're being friendly. You're marketing yourself. You're representing the company. I mean, there's so many different things that are exactly similar to being an actor, which is why a lot of actors are waiters in Los Angeles and Hollywood. So
Right.
it's not an uncommon thing.
No, there's that.
But
I was just gonna say, there's that joke that all the late night talk show hosts say, "Oh, you're an actor, huh? What restaurant do you work
right.
at?"
But for me it was actually a dream to be in the restaurant business, so it's hilarious how
That's
life
awesome. I
works
love it.
sometimes.
So we got to
But
take our.
I can understand your sentiment about Garrick, though, saying it, because he was saying it in the way that you're describing, which is, um, even though it's not what I want to do, I'm actually really good at it.
Mhm.
That's what sucks. So
Yeah, that's the
yeah.
sad part. So we'll take our quick break and we'll come right back. This is a great episode to talk about. Lots of good stuff, and we'll be right back on the seventh rule. Hey everybody, and welcome back to the seventh rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Yeah, hello.
My name's Ryan T. Husk. We are doing this awesome episode called "The Die Is Cast," and very quickly, here are the trivioids that did not make the cutting room floor. Modern theater has been on the decline since the late 23rd century. Chief's mother taught him, if you combine talking and eating, you'll end up doing neither very well. That's how he did it.
I like that one. I like that.
The starship Portland and a Cardassian cruiser are searching the Algira sector for the runabout. Starship Portland, let's keep Portland weird, they like to say. Keldon-class Cardassian ships have cloaking devices. Suddenly, Garrick's confession, we did that one. Garrick is still mad at Ducat about the business with the arms merchant. That's an interesting line by the Romulan. Or no, by Inabran Tain. What else? Mila always believed Garrick was innocent of betraying Cardassia and Tain. And last one is, oh, I shouldn't use this one. I missed this one. Odo gets all ashy and stuff. I was going to use that one. I forgot. That was the one I wanted to use, but I did the Razorback line because he got a little ashy. He needed some lotion.
Yeah, I wrote down old though.
Very good. A+. Old.
That's what I saw when I was looking at it. I was like, look at him. But you know what else? There was a line in there that I really liked from Tane.
Mm-hmm.
And he gave a line. He said, "No wonder the Romulans can't conquer the galaxy. Their cuisine is horrible." You remember that line?
Right.
I thought that was kind of funny. And then I also liked it when Odo was in that scene with Garrick, and Garrick comes in there, and he's captured, he's in confinement, and Garrick starts the sentence, so believe me, you don't want to, and Odo cuts him off with, I don't believe you.
Yeah. When he shows up with the bedpan, he's like, here, you can take a nap in this bedpan, gooey guy.
Yeah, and believe me, he's like, I don't believe you. I just like that little moment.
There was great stuff with those two. And remember, we've talked about this before a few times, that I do really like how Star Trek always finds a way to add a second main character into the storyline of somebody else's. Like when Chief O'Brien got captured and taken to Cardassia, then Odo goes there to be his lawyer or whatever. When Rom goes to Quonos to be, to marry Grilka, then Rom goes over there. They always have to have a second character to either be their conscience or be their support. In this case, Odo was Garrick's kind of conscience, because otherwise, if you just have the one character by themselves off on that thing, it's not enough for us to hang on to. Oftentimes, we need two, and then whatever the secondary characters are there. So that worked out well, especially with how well Odo and Garrick, fought, kind of made up, kind of had a better understanding for one another. In the previous episode, they were gaining respect with their verbal wordplay and their little battle of the wits, and this one was just great in how they gained an understanding and appreciation for each other.
Well, I think the thing that they realize they have in common is they both want to go home.
Exactly.
And Odo wants to be. He revealed in this episode that he has a desire to return to his home world and be with the founders. And we already know that Garrick is sad and to be living in exile on DS9. So that's what their common enemy is the common thing that haunts the both of them, is that they feel like they're not in their home, they're not where they belong. And I think that really expressed itself pretty well in this episode, and it was something that we went through. There was a moment there though where there's some things that bothers me with Odo, and I never occurred to me until this particular episode, is that I don't feel like he links enough. Like he doesn't transform enough. And what really highlighted that for me in this episode was the Romulan, who was really a changeling at the end, that was revealed to be a changeling and actually starting the entire Dominion War purposefully.
Right.
But you see how well and how effective they were by being something else, right? So when the changeling turned into a Romulan, he was able to convince Tane and get this whole plan up and rolling, and they executed. And I just felt like, couldn't Odo be using that same technique
always?
Always?
Well, right? I thought the same thing too. I mean, I think a lot of people did. You're right. And I think it always just boils down to budget. I mean, you're making 26 episodes a week.
Yeah.
Yes, he would be doing it all the time. And yes, we'd love to see that, but the budget probably is way higher, especially back then, to make him change into a Falcon or pretend to be Sisko to make Kira laugh, or whatever it happens to be.
Yeah. Well, I thought in this episode it would be easy for him to pretend he was Garrett, for example, to escape, right? When he was, let me out of here,
Right. I also thought it when he knocked out Garrick, he hit him with a punch. He could have just been like a slime ball, go, right on his head or whatever. Yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah, so there's this, I feel like he can use that to get out of so many situations and alter the course of events just by pretending or appearing to be somebody else. It's such an easy thing. It's like, oh, Captain, I didn't know you were here, or Admiral, sorry. All of a sudden he's the head of the Tal Shiar or the Obsidian Order, and and all of a sudden now that the person who's holding him captive has to respect him and take orders from him. So he could be using that like so much more than he is.
Yeah, he could just he could also, I mean, that's got to be how he gets all of his information too. Like, he sees this guy is going to meet with Quark. He puts that guy in the brig, pretends to be him, goes up to Quark and says, okay, so where's that stuff you were going to sell me? And then Quark produces the stuff, and he turns back into Odo and goes, I got you this time, Quark.
Right. And the other thing is, since we had this discussion early on in the show, we talked about mass and how he's able to change mass. And if he is able to change his mass, then he could easily be a fly or a mosquito or something very small, so that he wouldn't even be observed at all.
That's a good point. He must be able to, because in order to change into a bird, for example,
or a rat.
He's going to have to get much, much, much smaller and lighter, unless that rat is also, 150 pounds. It's like super, you're like, what is rat eating? It's a lot of carbs.
Can you imagine that fly landing on your shoulder? You're like, what the hell is going on?
No, it's like Ant-Man. Everybody that's watches Marvel stuff, they know what I'm talking about. Ant-Man, am I right, guys? They're like, yeah, Ant-Man.
Ant-Man. Yeah, I know a little bit about Ant-Man.
More like Can't-Man.
And there was also another line that was very Can't-Man. There was a line there with Garrick and the Romulan. And the two of them were in the hallway together, and I think the Romulan was telling him about himself. And Garrick's answer was so great. He's like, oh, what else am I feeling? I've never been psychoanalyzed by a Romulan. Yeah. And I really liked that line. I thought it was just like classic.
I mean, when you've got Garrick and Nabran Tain and Romulans and Odo all wrapped up in one plot, one A plot, that's you're going to have a lot of juicy lines and a lot of good interactions. Now, we didn't really get to enjoy too many Romulan things because it was just really the one Romulan that had lines, and it turned out to be a shape shifter. So we didn't get as much of the Romulans as we oftentimes do, but it was good nonetheless. I mean, we definitely were you able to guess that it was a changeling before it revealed it?
No, I wasn't. But I did sense something was fishy when he kept figuring out certain things. For example, when he was like, yeah, I agree that we should not kill Odo.
Right.
When he was doing stuff like that and agreeing or saying, hey, why did you want to not kill Odo? And when he's talking to
exactly.
Yeah, when he was being inquisitive like that, I was thinking, there's something wrong here. This guy's not what he appears to be. He's either a double agent, he's working for somebody else, and then clearly he was a changeling, but I didn't put it together until the moment.
Right, and that's what's fun about episodes that are written like this, or movies that are written like this, where it's once you find out what the person is, you go, oh, that's why this, and this. And then you could like rewatch it later, and it kind of makes more sense.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I really like the leadership that Sisko shows in this episode. I mentioned in the first half about kind of the decisiveness that he takes to go and save Odo. There's no question about it. He's like, I'm saving Odo. I'm not going to let him die. I'm not going to let one of my guys go. And we talked about no man left behind. But the other thing that I thought was a really decisive kind of leadership moment was when he let Eddington. He gave Eddington a chance to come back on the ship with him, right?
Right, grudgingly.
Begrudgingly, but he mentioned something like, "I always take a Starfleet officer's at his word."
Don't make me regret that.
I thought that was a classy line. It's just like, I'm going to invest this in you. I'm going to take a chance on you, and here's why: because of this your tradition and this rich history and all of this stuff. So don't let all of that down either, right? Don't let Starfleet down, essentially.
Right. He's not just saying, okay, I'll do it just this once. He's saying, you be aware of what you're doing if you are lying here. You're not just lying to me, you're betraying your uniform.
Right. That to me was another kind of way to show leadership, to invest and trust somebody with something when you know that they've already deceived you, but still give them a chance. I thought that was a good leadership decision on his part. And then the other thing that I thought was really great on Sisko's behalf was when he, the way in which he kind of instructed O'Brien to fix the cloaking mechanism on the Defiant. He asked O'Brien, he said, how long does it take to fix the cloaking device? And O'Brien's like, 10 hours. He's like, you've got to.
But what about my buffer time? Am I right, Lower Decks? Lower Decks knows.
You got to have some buffer time. Well, it was 3 hours. It was 3 hours when they last checked, and Kira was like, I got to go check to see what he's doing. It's been 3 hours.
So they gave him a little more time.
They gave him an hour. Gave him an
negotiation.
Well, they weren't getting assaulted by the Dominion yet, or by the Jemadar, which they were expecting.
Dude, how cool was that when we see the Defiant doing a little bit of battle, right? I mean, it's just, it's like night and day when you're used to just seeing them talk things out and talk and talk and talk. And every once in a while, there's a runabout with a laser or a tractor beam. And then the Defiant pops up and it's just like, bloop, 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 and you're like, whoa, put a lot of money into that. And I think it looks cool.
I think so. I really like that. I mean, it's just a beautiful thing. The action that you get. And also there was a little bit of action when they were attacking the Founder's homeworld, right? It's a little bit of action there. And then the Jemadar pop up. So there was a few action scenes. I kind of expected this Tane guy to die at the end, so I wasn't really shocked by it or saddened by it. It kind of was. The thing that was interesting to me was that Garrick risked his life to go back and get him.
Why do you think that is?
And then Odo risked his life to go back and get Garrick, going back and get him. Yeah. Which is pretty interesting to me.
Yeah, because he could have gone. Garrick just said, wait as long as you can.
He didn't say, exactly. So wait as long as you can.
So Odo could have been like, well, I've waited long enough. Gotta go.
5 seconds.
Yeah. I just know Quark's up to something. I got to get out of here.
Yeah, he didn't do that. He actually went back. But it was just, I was surprised a little bit about Garrick going back because I felt like he had already paid back his debt to Tane by just showing up and being a part of this plan and pledging his allegiance and saying, I'm back. I thought that was enough already to just kind of square the debt with Tane.
Right.
At least that was what Mila was kind of hinting at. Like if you
Mila, by the way, gets a non-appearance mention. Maybe her only one, but she definitely got one in this episode. She appeared in the previous one. So
right.
That was a good one.
So, it's just another time in which we really get shocked by who Garrick really is, because he really appears to be a real low-handed and kind of an unscrupulous character, but he has a real moral compass that he's guided by, and he does show compassion. He does show care for people, even though he has his own way about it, and it's not going to be honest and not be forthright. But he still has, ultimately, I feel like he has good intentions.
Yeah, the interactions with him and Odo were great, again, in the previous episode and in this one. And really, they both have that deep, dark secret that they both secretly really want to go home. And for different reasons, they keep it from other people. Odo, because he doesn't necessarily want to admit it to anybody because he doesn't even know why or understand it. He's kind of ashamed of it, and it's not anybody's business. And whereas Garrick just doesn't want to tell anybody anything ever, and his entire past is secret, and he's just a simple tailor, of course. So it's really interesting that they found that common ground. And, I do think that that's kind of what I got out of this two-parter, is that now these two characters that really hardly had any interaction at all found a common ground in the first episode where they were kind of battling it out and dueling the wits. And now in the second one of saying, hey, we're both kind of the same type of fish out of water character that longs to go home.
Yes. And I wanted to ask you, what do you make of the breakfast scene? There was a moment at the end where
Right.
Odo's, hey, let's go have breakfast together. That way, the next episode they can start with them having breakfast. In the exact
you're like, great, more eating.
Like, you guys can't start every episode with people eating at this exact location. But anyways, but Garrick makes a face. He says, "I thought you don't eat," and Quark was like,
Odo says, "I don't."
Odo says, "I don't," and walks away. But Garrick ends with a face, and the face. I wanted to ask you, what is that face saying to you?
I don't remember that face, but I can assume that what he's thinking is, well, that's an interesting turn of events. Odo wants to connect with me, whether it's in a friendly way or whether it's in a learning experience way. He wants to pick my brain, or he wants to, that was the impression I was left with, even though I missed the expression you're talking about.
I think you're pretty accurate in describing what the sentiment of the moment was.
Yeah. And I think we know why they chose breakfast is because lunch, Garrick would be like, "I'm sorry, I've already got a lunch date," And then if he says, and then of course if Odo says, "Would you like to do dinner sometime?" It almost sounds like they'd be like, "Oh, are we redefining our relationship?" So now they're like, "Well, I guess it's got to be breakfast." Plus, I think breakfast seems to fit Odo more. He seems like the kind of guy that's like, okay, let's start the morning with some stimulating conversation. Let's start the day, with something. Because he doesn't need breaks, really, I don't think, during lunch or dinner. So he probably just kind of wants to start the day and like warm up his mind or his bucket of goo that's up there.
His bucket of goo, yeah. I'm not sure, but maybe he preferred the Arginian massage parlor that Quark is going to open.
That could have been a trivioid. Yeah, that's a good one.
It was somewhere in there, right?
Yeah. No, I do remember that. That was at the end there in that last conversation. That was the big interaction at the end, and then Garrick never told anybody Odo's secret. And Odo was like, "Thank you for not telling the secret." But then we find out that Garrick didn't only do it to preserve Odo's secret, but also because Garrick wasn't proud of what he did to Odo to get that secret. And that's why, Odo comes in and says, "Hey, thanks for not telling anyone." And Garrick says, "I consider the entire conversation as something best forgotten." In other words, I don't want anybody to know what I did. And so I'm fine keeping your secret if you keep mine. And then that's when Odo was like, understood. That's where they had that understanding of, let's pretend this never happened.
Yeah, it was a good deal that they made. Of course, Odo suffered a lot more than Garrick did, because he really was essentially tortured by Garrick.
Right.
Yeah,
he made him get all ashy with no lotion, and he stared at him for 4 hours like that other guy. How funny is that, though, that he's like, you just stared at him for 4 hours. He's like, those eyes. And we're all thinking like, yeah, we know what he means, man. Garrick's got some pretty shifty eyes. He's got crazy eyes.
He does. That was Dr. Parmack, right?
That's right.
Yeah. And then I liked there was a small exchange. It wasn't much, but there was an exchange between the Admiral at the end with Sisko.
Right.
And in that exchange, he says, I'm not going to report this thing that you just did right there when you disobeyed my orders, but don't let it happen again. Otherwise you get court-martialed or promoted.
And he goes, either way, you're in trouble.
Yeah. And I just thought that was interesting because Well, is he Captain Sisko at this point?
Not yet. He's commander.
He's still commander.
He's still commander.
So a promotion makes him a captain.
Right.
So that's interesting. Maybe they were foreshadowing that a little bit and saying what to expect, in the near future. So I thought that was just a little Easter egg to what is to come.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think he becomes a captain pretty soon, if I remember correctly. Like within the next, I think it's at the beginning of
season 4.
Yeah, it's within the next 10 episodes for sure. Because and the writers have said in the past that it's just because like he's acting like a captain, and the stakes are raised so high, he's no longer just some guy in a Cardassian mining station overseeing the Bajoran provisional government. That a commander can do, a lieutenant could probably do. But now there's this wormhole, there's the Dominion, there's the Gamma Quadrant, there's war at every corner. Like, the stuff that he's doing is bigger than what a lieutenant or commander usually oversees. And they're, basically the storyline forced their hand to where, like, he's obviously a captain. We wanted a commander, but he's obviously a captain. And he carries himself, the actor carries himself as a captain. This is a captain,
Especially, like I was highlighting in this particular episode, I feel like he takes a lot of steps that show you that he's basically acting and behaving like a captain. He goes to get his man. He tells his crew it's voluntary. Who's coming with me, and he approaches things with this really calculated kind of logic. I really like the way his rationale and reasoning, and as a leader, you get to see it kind of play out in how his thought process goes. So those are the things that I really enjoy about him. I still didn't like this episode as much as I liked the one before it, and I'm pretty sure that the rating will not be as high as the 8.7 as we saw in the last episode.
Well, it's interesting you say that because we are out of time, so it is time for you, Jake Sisko. Jake Sisko guesses the IMDb score.
Rating,
what do you think?
Score. I'm going to do an exact opposite of the last one, which this was an 8.7. I'll say it's a 7.8.
This one got a 9.0.
What?
See, but
I must have missed something. I don't know how that's possible.
I think it's because people look back 20 years later and they say this is kind of where it all started. This was a big, important episode. I think it's retrospect more so than people watched it and immediately were like, oh my God, that's totally a 9. I think that's what we'll find out. Anyway, we do have to run. We do want to give a very special thanks to Carmen Shamwell, PJ Tomas, TJ Jackson-Bey, Bill Victor Arucan, Yvette Blackmon, Dennis Koch, Homer Frizzell, Eve England, Marie Segal, Titus Mohler, Tim Baum, Mohamed Noor, and Susan V. Gruner. Thank you all for joining us. Don't forget to subscribe, like, tell your friends. Check us out, patreon.com/7th Rule, and stay tuned for the free-for-all. It's going to be a fun one. See you on the other side. On the 7th Rule. Give me the wheelie thing. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the 7th Rule. Look at all these awesome faces. We've got Titus Mohler, Homer Frizzell, Mohamed Noor, Timothy Baum, Rex A. Wood, TJ Jackson-Bey out in Missouri. We've got Susan V. Gruner, PhD, Skillet, and also known as Carmen. And we've got Cirroc, Lofton, of course. My name is Ryan T. Husk. And before we start recording, Susan, who is a newcomer, as well as Mohamed. You guys know Mohamed, but he's a newcomer to our free-for-alls. Susan was telling us a little bit about herself. Do you want to tell everybody what you do, Susan?
I am a forensic entomologist.
Nice.
So I did have a question that you would probably be able to answer better than anybody here, besides maybe Rex, because Rex is. What is the difference between a dragonfly and a damselfly? Because I remember back in the day, I would say, oh, cool, it's a dragonfly. And someone would say, no, it's a damselfly. I'm like, I don't.
There is a difference. Evolutionarily speaking, I mean, they're two different species. They're both a member of the family, not the family, higher up. They're odonates, odonata. They're both aquatic. And I think it's just an evolutionary thing. They deposit their eggs in water. They're nymphs or live in water and eat other things. And the adults obviously are winged and fly around. But there is a difference. They're different species.
The babies are called nymphs?
Yes, they are. Yes.
Okay.
I don't want this to be an entomology lesson and bore everybody, but yeah, there's different.
Hey, entomology rocks.
This is the most educational this show has ever been.
Oh, no!
Yeah.
Already.
No,
Thank you, everybody.
Ferengi would love this. They would think this is like a culinary class.
They wouldn't think
I
that
think
once you dug
it's
into the
great
forensic
too.
entomology part.
That is the
Right.
best joke of the day. That a culinary
not
class? Wow, that's brilliant.
I didn't watch, I'm sorry, but I didn't watch Enterprise. Didn't they have an entomologist on Enterprise? Didn't she die in real life? The woman who played the entomologist, am I mistaken?
Mohammed?
You stumped me.
Yeah, I don't remember. I don't remember an entomologist on Enterprise. I mean, maybe there was, but I don't remember.
So many people didn't watch Enterprise that,
Yeah, I didn't.
I love
What
it.
now? What now?
I didn't.
Yeah, I watched it, but I don't remember that. I mean,
Yeah, me
Neither
neither.
do I.
But also, before we get into our fun questions, Rex, can you tell us what you're wearing?
Okay, well, you know me, I always try to shout back to TOS.
Yeah.
So I'm actually wearing the medicine headband that from the episode Paradise Syndrome, that when Kirk stumbles into the little temple and gets his memory erased and he becomes Cirroc, which is actually becomes the medicine man of the
I was
tribe.
going to say,
No,
was his last name
not Cirroc.
I thought you said. Okay. Thought you were calling my name.
You got to do it right. I am Cirroc. That kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
But actually, it's from that episode where the asteroid is going to actually destroy the world, and they have to find a way to move the asteroid out of the way. And so he gets his memory actually erased. He becomes a Native American, becomes their medicine man because he comes out of the temple, and they think he's the medicine man now. And it all goes through the episode that towards the end, he cannot get back into the temple because the communicator, when he lifted the communicator and opened it up and it makes a chirping noise, it actually is what opened up the temple and he fell in at that point. So they can't figure out. So finally, Spock shows up to save the day, opens up the temple, and they actually turn on the beam, and there's a big blue beam that comes out and moves the asteroid out of the way. So yeah, pretty cool episode, though. A lot of Native American in it. Kirk takes Marimani, which is his bride, and ends up marrying her, and she is pregnant, and towards the end of the episode they stone her to death. So it's kind of a sad episode. So it's another one of Kirk's children that we never get to see at that point because of that. But yeah,
So Rock's like, that can kill you? Different kind of stoning.
yeah.
Oh, okay, that kind of stuff.
Stone by stone, she wasn't stoned.
So
But yeah.
also very quickly, Susan, you said you had a question for us?
Yes, I do. And I apologize if it's been asked before, but is it Bajoran or Bajoran? Somebody, please. How do you pronounce it?
I
Is
think
it
Well,
Bajor?
you pronounce the planet. The planet is pronounced Bajor, so it's something between a hard and a soft J. So you would assume that you would pronounce Bajoran based off of how you pronounce the planet Bajor. So it's kind of like a weird sort of like in between place. I like phonetics.
Well, I've noticed that on many different episodes, different people pronounce it differently, and it kind of drives me nuts. I'm a stickler for details.
Right, like Captain Picard calls it Bajor.
Yeah.
Which is incorrect.
And Ducat calls them Bajorans. He says, the Bajorans are my people, or whatever he says. Yeah,
Right.
and I think Carmen, you know what you're talking about. I think it's Bajor. I think they're Bajorans.
Yeah.
But what do you guys think? Oh,
And I'd
wait.
agree with Carmen.
Okay.
Yeah, I've heard it pronounced both ways, and so I understand what you're saying, that it is a little bit of a confusion, but I think it's like potato.
Nobody says potato, though.
Potato people. Yeah, I've never heard anybody.
Hey, pass me the potatoes, man.
Yes, I like
Boil
some
them, mash them, stick them in a stew. Am I right?
Yes.
It's a Lord of the Rings reference.
Good reference.
Jeff.
Homer's got an update for us.
Yeah, I saw that.
All
I
right.
think I just
Tell us.
Yeah, so Enterprise did have an entomologist. The character name was Elizabeth Cutler, played by Kelly Way Meyer. She passed away in 2003, and I think I had read somewhere that they opted not to recast. I think she played a fairly large role on the show, but they opted not to recast. Yeah, I don't know what the cause of death was, but way too young. I mean, she was born in '67 and died in 2003.
Wow.
And as I recall, her character had a developing relationship with Dr. Phlox. I don't know that it would have led to anything romantic, but Ensign Cutler is kind of who I had in mind, but I wasn't sure that she was an etymologist. But I know that she did not be on the show. I didn't know the reason why, though.
Yeah, I thought she was just written out of the show. That's unfortunate. That's sad.
Yep. Right now, Cirroc and I are really racking our brains to try to think of a Jay Cutler joke. Am I right?
No.
Okay,
Like the quarterback?
Yeah. Okay, maybe it's me and Homer. Me and Homer.
I wasn't working very hard at that.
Here's a good joke about Jay Cutler. He's a very bad quarterback, and he just kind of sucks. Ha!
Get it?
Wow. Yeah.
Okay.
He's a fan of the show or not?
So let's.
So I'm really interested to see how Rex ties in the episode that he's representing with the episode that you are or have actually just reviewed. So that I'm standing by for that.
I'm not tying anything in. I just decided to wear it.
Oh.
Something different. Sorry.
Darn it.
Sorry.
Tim tells us it's cardiac arrhythmia. Is that what it was?
Yes, that's what it says on the internet. So take that with a grain of salt.
Cause of death. Okay, now we know. So let's ask a fun question. This was a two-parter, and I was thinking, what would be a fun question about this one? How about, what is your favorite two-part episode in Star Trek? It's going to be tough to involve any kind of Picard or Discovery, because do they really have two-parters in those? I guess the first two episodes of Discovery was a two-parter. Other than that, they're all just very serialized. We're going to start with Mr. Rex A. Wood.
Okay. Well,
he looks like he knows, yeah.
I'll just be the TOS throwback that I always am, the Menagerie.
Okay.
Okay. The Menagerie is one of my favorite, just because they incorporated the original pilot series and put it all together, and was able to get that in when it wasn't, taken as well to begin with. So it's kind of nice that they were able to use that stuff and put two segments together. So that was my favorite one.
Awesome.
Now, is this a phonetics thing? I thought it was called a menage.
Nah, that's something totally different.
That's something
totally different. And that usually requires three parts.
All right.
Is that favorite Star Trek episode name? Am I right? Next Generation, Menage a Troy. That is an episode title. It's called Menage a Troy. That is.
No way. Are you serious?
It's a good one if you like to hear Captain Picard recite poetry.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Menage a Troy. Okay. All right.
Yeah. Major Barrett was on that one, and
Yep.
Raise my hand for that.
I'm pretty sure that if that was named that episode in TOS, Kirk would have been there.
He would have been there. Yeah. He would
Blue
be
alien,
there.
green alien,
Cameo.
Yeah.
Commander Homer Frizzell, your thoughts on your favorite two-part Star Trek episodes?
So I feel as though my memory is leaving me, and I just have mainly short-term memory. So I have to go with the last one that I watched together, and that's the best of both worlds as part of Star Trek Day.
Nice.
I enjoyed that, and I hadn't seen it in quite some time, and we got to see Ensign Bennett, which was cool. Tim McCormick.
Happy Star Trek Day, everybody. Belated.
Yeah.
Happy Star Trek Day.
I missed the whole thing, unfortunately.
Well, I know the panels are still out there. I don't
On
know
YouTube,
if you
yeah.
can. Yeah, they're pretty good, especially the DS9 one. Kudos, Cirroc.
Actually,
Yes.
that's the only part that
Thank
I
you.
got to see because it was on you. I think Cirroc, you tweeted a link to it on YouTube, I believe, and I was able to watch it that way.
Very well done.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I missed everything else.
Remember when they
It's
showed
all.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say it's all on YouTube. What were you saying?
Yeah, when they showed The Visitor, I started preemptively crying immediately as it started.
I
I
know.
hadn't even gotten anywhere yet. I was already crying.
Yeah.
That was a good one.
Now, is Star Trek Day something that's been celebrated for a while, or is that just something
don't
that's
think
like a newly kind of coined?
Titus knows
holiday?
the answer.
Yeah, this was the first I've heard of it, Cirroc. So.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
They've mentioned
I-
it before, but they've never done a
Never
thing
made a
for
big
it.
deal
Yeah.
out of it. No.
Okay.
There was
No,
a little
somebody
bit of
in
a
marketing-
to-do for the 50th, but this is the first time like I've seen a whole day planned around it.
And the reason they did that was just because everything's going virtual this year. And so they're just like, well, we should do
Yeah.
our own thing. When should we do it? I'm sure they're like, well, Star Trek Day is coming up. Perfect.
Yep.
I'm guessing.
Okay. So then I am in agreement. We're all in agreement that this is not something that has been celebrated in the last 10, 20, 50, 40 years.
Not
Right.
Not
Right.
That's right.
Okay.
You're
What's
hip,
been-
you're in the know.
What's been mentioned more than that is actually First Contact Day. Everybody
Yeah.
knows First Contact Day, right?
No.
What is that?
April 5th.
April the 4th. 5th.
You're
It
thinking
depends
of
on the
May
time
the
zone.
4th. Yeah, it depends on time zone.
30 days behind. April 4th. Why April 4th? Is there a reason for that?
First Contact, Zephram Cochrane in the movie First Contact. It was like 21 or 2063, something like that, right around there. That's when their first warp flight is done. And the easy way to remember that is because everybody remembers May the 4th, right? 5-4 for Star Wars Day. Well, this is the inverse. It's 4-5. That's how I remember it.
Nice tip.
Memory tool.
Carmen, aka Skillet, your thoughts? Do you have a favorite two-part episode?
I have two. And yes, I cheated. I looked really quick, but I knew for a fact. I knew for a fact that my favorites would be from Voyager. My favorite two-parters. The first one is the Killing Game 1 and 2. It was when the Trojan took over Voyager. And apologies for anyone who has not seen Voyager, but they put them in all these different holodeck scenarios, and they installed holo emitters all throughout the ship, and made the holodeck like in the hallways and stuff. So I love that episode because they, of course, it's very cliche, but they explore World War II Germany, or I think they were in France, actually. So that was interesting. And then the second one was Unimatrix Zero, Part 1 and 2. We got to see the sort of like subconscious world that assimilated humanoids lived in their minds when they're regenerating. So I love both of those episodes, all four of those episodes. So those are my two favorite two-parters. So, like, you're never going to hear any Voyager slander from me, ever. So I'm going to try to champion and cheerlead them whenever I can, because too many people come out the side of their mouths about Voyager, so I have to be the one that's like Voyager every chance I get.
Hold it down.
So yeah, those two-parters.
Nice. Very good. So who else loves Voyager here? Mohamed?
I do. I happen to love Voyager.
Nice.
Was the ending a two-parter?
I think so.
It was
what was
like
it called?
the
Endgame or
end
something?
of the season. Like it was weird. They ended Voyager. I was like, oh, they got canceled, but it's like, you know, seven seasons is a good run.
Yeah.
But I think they ended
best.
I think they ended it very awkwardly. And I know that there's a couple people. Cirroc, I don't know if you finished Voyager or not. I don't want to give anything away. But yeah.
So, as soon as I started, I'll be finished.
Okay. Yeah, I don't want to give anything away.
It was canceled.
But, yeah.
I thought it was originally planned just to go 7 years.
It was 7 years.
Right, and which is great, but it's like,
right, yeah.
But they did end it a little kind
So
of.
they could have ended it, tied it up a little more gradually.
Much better.
So
Okay.
it was a little.
Opposed to when
it was a
Voyager
little
blew
rough.
up, that was really devastating. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh yeah,
Oh man, spoiler!
the special effects were amazing.
I actually liked the
Especially for
finale
the
of
time.
Voyager. I mean,
Technically,
Yeah, I
it
was
does
gonna
blow
say-
up in one of the episodes.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah,
Maybe
there
a
was
little bit.
a couple of them. A good time the ship got destroyed. They were really good episodes.
I liked it in the ice.
Oh yeah, that was good.
That
That's
was
the
fun.
one.
that was a
The
good
first one I
episode.
was thinking about.
Cirroc and I were thinking about that one too. Hey, Tim, do you have a favorite 2-part episode?
Yeah, The Circle.
Ooh.
It's kind of a 2-part. There was Circle and then The Siege. Beginning of
Right,
the second
right, right.
season of Deep Space Nine. Because to me, that seems to when Deep Space Nine actually started getting its stride. So it set up all the conflict, and you know that was the first time they had to defend the station. Of course, that happened multiple times over the years. But no, I really liked The Circle. So
It's a great one. We did that one a few months ago. Very good. That's kind of when things started to, I mean, we keep saying that where Deep Space Nine starts to pick up in a lot of places, but that's one of the first bumps up to where it starts really climbing, right?
yeah.
All right. Excellent. Susan V. Gruner, PhD. Do you have any favorites?
You can call me Sue. Just call me Sue. I can't think offhand. I'm so unprepared, but I think the two final episodes of Voyager, I think that was the 2-parter, and I loved it. But I admit it was very confusing, and to this day, and I could probably watch it tonight, I'm not exactly sure how they did. Since Cirroc hasn't seen it, I don't want to give anything away, but I'm not positive how they did what they did at the very end. Do you know the rest of you know what I'm talking about? The very ending.
Yes.
Okay, I'm not sure how they did that, and I must have seen it 100 times.
TJ's like, I got you on this one. I know.
Hey, don't worry about spoiling it for me. I'd love to hear this. What are you referring to? What did they do?
We want you to be surprised.
Yeah, we want you to be surprised.
It's true. There's so many
Must be
times
major.
I try not to tell something to Cirroc because I'm worried. I'm like, but what if he finally watches Next Generation? I don't want to ruin it.
That's true.
And Sue, there's no preparing for these, which is why Ryan likes them so much.
I'm not even prepared for them. I just
Well, and it's not just because I'm here, but by far, I thought Deep Space Nine, out of all of them, there's really no comparison. And I loved them all that I watched. I just started watching, I can't even tell you what the name of this is how embarrassed I am. What's the new one?
Lower
Discovery
Decks?
or Picard?
No, I haven't started watching that. Picard, okay, I watched that. I love it.
Discovery.
Yeah, Discovery. I have watched a little bit, but I'm not crazy about it. It was always, in my opinion, Deep Space Nine had the best character development and family oriented. Just so I realized it was a little dark. I get it, but I just thought it was so far ahead of all the others. And I love the original series. I loved Voyager, which I think I watched at the same time. Is that right?
They were running concurrently
Yeah,
after
right. Okay.
Deep Space
Yep.
Nine, in the middle of Deep Space Nine's third
And then the
season.
Next Generation, of course, I love that too. But no, Deep Space Nine has always had my heart. I always, from day one, I thought, wow, this is the writing, the acting. Why is it so underrated? I don't get it. Why didn't you guys win more awards? What, did I miss something?
I think it was a little bit ahead of its time. I think that if that show came out nowadays, it would be appreciated a lot more. People would say, "Oh yeah, this is these are hitting the nail on the head with all these topics."
Everything. It's so relevant.
Yeah, it's very relevant. Yeah, unfortunately, we didn't get the kind of recognition, and being boxed into the Dark show, also the overlap of Next Generation and the overlap of Voyager, left us only on the air for like about a year on our own, I think. So there were a few reasons why we were overlooked. But
it pisses me off
to be appreciated.
Also,
the beautiful thing is that it still lasts, and that people are still appreciating, and we can still download and watch the episodes, and it's finally coming around and getting its due. So
it has stood the test of time.
Yeah, even more so. Yeah, it's growing appreciation as time goes on. But also, a dirty little secret is that sci-fi TV shows don't get awards outside of visual effects and makeup. They just
Why?
They just don't get recognition. I don't know. I mean, they're starting to a little bit more now, but I mean, it's just people like awards go to dramas, especially in movies.
A lot of sci-fi are dramas, though. Like they're just set in a funky time period and in space.
In Funky Town.
I know for me, when Deep Space Nine was originally on, it was syndicated, and I moved across the country, and then I couldn't find it in my new city because it wasn't on at the same time or on the same station, and so I kind of lost track. And that was about when they started going into the long story arcs. So I'd see it every now and then, going like, I have no idea what's going on. Now that it's available on Netflix, you can binge it and follow the whole thing through.
Thank God for that.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. TJ Jackson-Bey, do you have a favorite two-parter?
Let's see. So my favorite two-parter from every series is.
Wait a second. Are you wearing the Sisko kid shirt? Is that what I just saw?
I kind of saw that.
I just saw it for a second. There it is.
There it is. All right.
Yeah, she hooked me up.
Nice.
Nice. I just saw that little tip right there. I was like, wait a second.
Yeah.
We're not going to talk about the tip.
I know. I was like, oh, shoot, what have I said? Anyway, go ahead.
But anywho, okay, so favorite two-parter. Since Homer took the best of both worlds, which was, in my opinion, the low-hanging fruit. First of all, the one that we just, I'm kidding. The one that we're reviewing now is absolutely one of my favorites. There's so much development for Garrick's character. And, I sympathize with a lot of the feelings that were expressed in Garrick and Odo's conversation about them missing home and feeling out of place and assimilating into, a world outside of, where they originated, and having that longing to go back. I appreciate that feeling in the way they expressed it. But if I'm going to go, since I like to steal more than one answer all the time, with another two-parter, I will also go to Voyager and say Future's End was a really fun one for me, where they went back to 1990s Earth and got to walk around Los Angeles, and
with Sarah Silverman.
Tuvok tries to talk their way out of a traffic ticket with pure Vulcan logic, and also is a real freakosaurus. And yeah, that was a great episode and a lot of fun to watch.
If you want to have a good time, TJ, go back and watch their outfits for when they're trying to fit into 1996 Earth, and just look at the outfits that Tom Paris and Tuvok are wearing. It's just, it's gorgeous.
Yeah, Tom's 20th century knowledge. Again, words out of Tuvok's mouth. It's a wonder they survived that experience based on Tom Paris's knowledge of the 20th century. But yeah, that's a really, really fun two-parter.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Dr. Mohamed Noor, you're up next.
I was trying to think if it has to be if you're going to be strict and say it has to be a two-parter, I might go with Voyager Scorpion. Right. That's that was a really good one in the sense like the dynamics there and like Janeway and Chakotay not agreeing with each other and actually where the name came from with the story about the scorpion. It was all
great story.
Really, yeah, it was really good. If you're not gonna be strict, and this would be like actually a 3-part arc. It's the last 3 of the 3rd season of Enterprise. I actually just rewatched those recently and like that was like cinematically good. Like this could be a movie, I thought.
Right. The Xindi War.
That was the last 3. Yeah. So starting out with the council to all the way to 0 Hour there. Like it was really, really well done, I thought.
And then they went to the worst episodes on the next 3.
Yes. Oh gosh, I know. Yeah, actually I would say for those 3, like you have to cut out the last minute where they're like getting Nazi. I was like, oh my god, what is this?
Stormfront?
Yeah.
You can't get down with Stormfront?
No. I tried. I'm with Ryan on that one.
I tried, man. I tried.
You know, I got to play the devil's advocate. So I'm going to back it up. I can find some good there.
Next week, let us know if you found any good.
I will do that.
It might take the whole week.
We'll see.
Challenge accepted.
Titus Mohler, what do you think? Favorite 2-parter?
Well, I'll just briefly give a shout out to what Carmen said about the Killing Game. I've long thought that one it just had some of the most amazing stuff in it. I mean, you have Klingons, I think, fighting Nazis at one point, and it had a lot of great stuff in there. And but I think overall, now I've had some time to think about it. It might be season 5's 2 episodes from Deep Space Nine, In Purgatory's Shadow and By Inferno's Light. And that's what I said that I felt like was kind of like a 2-parter to this one that you guys are reviewing now here in season 3. It has some of the same ingredients. Garrick is a focal point of it, but there's so many great relationships that are being played in that 2-parter, and it also starts in the same way that this one does. There's a small little murmur of an idea that, okay, we got this tiny little lead. We don't know if it's a big deal or not. It proves to be massive. It's a small piece of a much larger puzzle. And of course that 2-parter, is when Ducat reveals the alliance with the Dominion and all that and everything. But yeah, I love the pairing of Garrick and Worf. I really like the Worf character. I feel like he's a very honorable guy. And I like to think Garrick has some honor too. And it meant a great deal to me at the end of that 2-parter when Worf was able to tell Garrick, you did well. And then, Garrick had to overcome personal demons, claustrophobia, stuff like that. And of course, he had the big scenes with Tane. But he also got to have scenes with his pal Bashir, who, surprise, surprise, was out there in the Gamma Quadrant. And then we got to meet Martok, the one-eyed Martok, and Worf formed a real friendship there. And yeah, there was a lot of great stuff in those 2-parters. But I love how it started at this kind of small lead of we heard a distress signal from the Gamma Quadrant, and it becomes this huge thing that fulfills Sisko's prophecy and helps change the direction and push the story forward on the show in an epic way. So yeah, I'd probably say those 2.
So stay tuned for that, Cirroc.
I will.
Coming up. It's a wild
really
ride.
Good. Yeah,
that's a great one, Titus.
Martok.
Well, Cirroc, or I am Cirroc, right?
Yes.
Rex? You can either give us your favorite 2-parter so far, or you could just pick a winner.
I can't pick a winner because I'd have to know enough to be able to judge the subtle nuances between them all. I'm going to say my personal favorite, which was one of my joys experiencing, which was the pilot episode of Deep Space Nine.
Nice.
The Emissary. I just felt like that was essentially a 2-parter, and I enjoyed the whole experience. It was just the beginning of something beautiful. So,
how old were you, Ben?
He was a baby.
I know.
Yeah, I was.
How old?
I was 13 at that time. 13, yep. With my fishing pole.
Yes.
And no shoes.
Those little, what do you call them? With the pants that were like up below your knees.
Yeah, like my overalls on. It kind of looked like a futuristic overalls. But I just remember that day and then just filming it. That was also, I think, a David Livingston I think David Livingston directed the pilot episode, if I'm not mistaken. But it was just a great experience, and it set the tone for what was going to be coming later on down the road. So that's my personal experience of a two-parter. What about you, Ryan?
I mean, well, honestly, I think that is still the best pilot so far. I think that's still the best Star Trek pilot, in my opinion. And one of my favorite two-parters for sure. But I'm going to say that my favorite two-parter, you know what, I'm going to say Gambit 1 and 2, because it doesn't get enough love. And I know it's not, not up there usually in those conversations, but it was fun to see kind of like a rogue crew, where Picard goes off with that rogue crew, and then Riker. And then we get to see Data in charge and Worf as a first officer. Really cool, interesting new dynamics. It's almost like fan fiction. It's kind of like what would happen if Data was the captain and Worf was the, commander. And then they just have the cutest bro moment in the history of all Star Trek to date, when Worf is always questioning Data, and then Data says, "Okay, we'll go save him," and Worf's like, "Finally," and then Data goes and reprimands him in his office, and then they shared that moment where Data says, he says, don't ever do that again. If you can't do the job, I'll ask, Commander LaForge to take your place. And he says, Worf, of course, says, "No, I will do it," or whatever. And Data says, "I'm sorry if I've ended our friendship." And Worf says, "No, it is I that," whatever the hell he says. I haven't seen it in like 20 years. But it's like, it's the most beautiful moment. Like these two little bros, without a handshake, without a hug, without anything, they just shared this moment, a Klingon and a freaking robot android. Anyway, so I especially like that moment. And I like Picard, aka Galen, on the ship, with the Elosian captain. Anyway, that was good. Maybe if I watch it again for the first time in 20 years, I'll be like, that's not that good. But I thought it was.
No, it really is a great two-parter. I love that two-parter as well.
Yeah, it's fun. Great. Well, I think that's about all the time we have today.
I have a question. And what does Homer's shirt say? Is that Planet Hollywood? No, I know it's not Planet Hollywood. It says Trek to
Ticonderoga.
Trek to Ticonderoga.
Yes.
There it
What's
is.
that?
Yeah.
Nice.
So
Episode name.
there's a recreation of the Star Trek original series sets in Ticonderoga, New York, and it is amazing. And if you like the original series or Star Trek, you should go check it out.
That is on my bucket list.
Yeah, I've done the tour a few times, and I have had the good fortune to also do the tour as conducted by J.G. Hertzler,
Nice.
and he was in character as Martok, so that was interesting.
And Mohamed tells us where we can find more information on that.
Awesome.
StarTrekTour.com.
Nice.
Nice.
There
Yeah,
it is.
they are open again. Of course, it's like a socially distanced tour. And it would be helpful if you actually buy tickets in advance to keep them going, because I think it's been rough during the queue.
Great. And TJ tried to sneak by without showing us his shirt too. I'm glad we caught him.
TJ.
Yeah, we got you, TJ.
That's Cirroc's
Well,
sister
don't
that
tell
makes
Homer,
those
but
shirts.
I also so don't tell Homer, but I also was able to cop one of those gators.
Oh, cool.
Oh,
We
Sorry,
won't tell
bud,
Homer.
you're not unique anymore.
clearly I have to up my game.
Got to
So
switch it up.
that's Cirroc's sister, AbyssinianKiosk.com. We'll put the link in the description box. Check it out. She makes all kinds of amazing stuff. It's very Ethiopian-inspired, Ethiopian art, and a lot of it is also Star Trek related, including like the shirt that TJ just showed you. I think that's about it for today, right, guys?
Hally ho.
Well, thanks very much for joining us, Titus, Homer, Mohamed, Rex, TJ out in Missouri, Sue, Tim, Skillet. People are wondering like why we're calling her Skillet. That's what it says.
I
on
love
her name.
that.
You can't see.
Look. Listen, when you have a face like this, you just can't have people going around calling you your government name. I need to, stalkers and all those things, all my fans.
Mm-hmm.
I prefer to have,
a stage name.
Yeah.
Speaking of your face, not to embarrass you, but when you were looking to your left about 10 minutes ago, I was noticing you've got a great profile. It's a really nice profile.
Whoa!
Now she's gonna be afraid to look left or right. She's gonna be self-conscious. But really, I was like, wow, that's really nice. You got a great profile.
That's oh my God. Thank you. That's very nice of you to say. Oh my God.
Now she's like, I'm never gonna look to the right or left again.
Really, right?
That was the boyfriend.
There it is, Cirroc.
He was taking a nap, so he just woke up, so he came to say hi.
Cirroc, you've got a great profile too.
Oh, thank you. Jeez, it took me a long time.
Yeah,
no,
that's great.
That's funny. No, yeah, it was a good hangout today, though. I enjoyed that. It was good to have you today as well, Susan, and welcome you to the conversation.
Thank you. It was great to be here, really.
And where are you located?
Florida. Gainesville, Florida.
Okay. Home of
Do I have to say
AJ
it?
Styles. Ladies and gentlemen, AJ Styles. Nobody
Is that a
knows.
fashion thing?
Somebody's going to know who AJ Styles is because I remember them always saying Gainesville, Florida.
Well,
he's from the
Tom Petty's from Gainesville, Florida.
Who?
Tom Petty was from
that's
Gainesville.
cool.
Right.
Great. Well, thank you all for joining us. Shout out to Tom Petty. Rest in peace. Awesome dude. Sings about Ventura Boulevard, which is just a mile or two from my house. So I think about him a lot. And,
happy anniversary to Tim Baum.
Yes. Tim, you unmuted yourself to say something.
No, actually, I tried to unmute to say thank you, but I said thank you before I unmuted. So anyway, can you believe it? I'm working on a master's in computers, and I still can't figure it out. So
it's just
all right. Well, thank you all very much, and always remember the 7th rule.